Hey there, how's it going? Welcome to the show. This is Scott Tuzanaw here, and today I've got a great guest that I'm really excited to introduce you to. His name is John Barbon. John, welcome to the call, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me, Scott.
Not so much a call, video presentation. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Man, I've been following your podcast for a few weeks now. It's actually been a part of my daily routine. In the morning, I'm much like Brad Howard. I like to go for a walk to kind of start my day. I put the headphones on. It's my time to clear my head. And when I was reintroduced to your work at the Adonis Index and Venus Index by a mutual friend, Jackie, girl with no name, I went to your site and I just saw all these podcasts that you guys had. So I just downloaded a bunch of them. I got my own little folder on my computer, downloaded them, popped them into my MP3 player. I've been listening to you guys every single morning, and every day I get these aha moments. I'm just blown away with the realness that you guys keep, and it's just no BS. You're straight to the point, letting people know exactly what it really takes to transform your body and get in great shape. So I want to use this opportunity to introduce you to all my friends and fans at the Fat Loss Quickie blog, and just answer a few questions, introduce them to you, answer a few questions that may help them open their eyes to a new perspective out there, because I really find that you guys are unique out there in an industry that kind of follows certain trends. So I'm excited to dive into these questions, buddy.
All right, man, let's get to it.
And the first thing that stands out to me that makes you guys different, the thing that really resonated with me is that when it comes to body transformations, a lot of the time we measure our progress based on weight, or what the scale says, our body fat percentage, and typically that's what we're aiming for when we start a transformation. And you guys are trying to start this movement, or you've started the movement. We'd like to gain some more momentum, and I'm behind you guys all the way, about going with a muscle index. It's kind of like an appearance, the ideal, or you guys call it golden ratio. And just tell us, can you expand a bit on this muscle index?
Sure. So for the guys, the muscle indexes, we came up with a few ways of categorizing it. Me and Brad Pilon were trying to figure out what is the concept of getting in shape. So people say they want to be in shape, but no one can put their finger on it. You can look at someone in the gym and go, that guy's in shape, I want to look like that. Or, a girl looks over at another girl and she's like, oh, that's the figure I would like to have. But, just looking at them, you still can't piece together, what is it that I'm looking at that I like? And so the Adonis and Venus index are just specific ratios, and I'll get to the muscle index in a couple seconds. But the two indexes are just, for Adonis, it's the waist to shoulder ratio, and it's calibrated on your height. And, for you or me or whoever, at whatever height we're at, we think we've come up with a calculation that, based on those ratios, we think you're at your best looking shape when you're at, these specific numbers. So that works for guys and girls. And as far as measuring progress, the muscle index is another way of tracking how muscular and lean your body is at the same time without using body weight. Because you and I both know, after a while, body weight doesn't tell us anything. And we can fluctuate, a guy your size can fluctuate 6 to 7 pounds at least in a day just based on water. Do you have any food in your system? Have you had something to drink? Have you not had something to drink? Did you just get up in the morning? Are you fasted? Is it towards the end of the day? So what do you mean by body weight? Like, is your body weight's not the same throughout the day. Anyone who's actually tracked it, just for a couple of days, if you just stepped on the scale every 2 to 3 hours, you'd realize your body weight's all over the place. So when someone says, how much do you weigh? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like in the morning when I wake up, or at the end of the day after Thanksgiving dinner? I guarantee I'll be up 9 pounds. Just because there'll literally be 9 pounds of water and food in me. But, 2 days later, when I'm back on track, about 8.5 of it will be gone, right? So it's kind of, there's no such thing as body weight when you're getting, it's not that precise of a measurement. So the muscle index is our way of categorizing how muscular you are and how lean you are. And it's a series of measurements, both circumferences of things like your chest, your arms, your legs, your shoulders, divided by your waist in order to correct for how much fat mass you have. And for guys, we carry most of it around our waist, combined with your 1 rep maxes in various lifts. So when we put those two sort of measurements together, and we call those the strength index and the volume index, when you put them together, we get what we call the muscle index. So given your height and your relative waist size versus all of the circumferences of the rest of your body, that's our way of being like, oh, well, you're actually very muscular given your size. But if you're, if you have a relatively large waist and you weigh a lot for your size, meaning you're carrying around extra fat mass, I'm trying to be politically correct here, and even though you're strong, but you're carrying a lot of mass around, well, when we divide by weight on the strength index and we divide by waist on the volume index, that corrects for the fact that, yeah, sure, you wear an extra large shirt, but you have an extra large gut. So, you know what I mean? So it's what we call, and you probably heard this in our podcast, we have two definitions. It's shirt on big versus shirt off big. And most people would, a really in-shape guy, a guy with a really good index or muscle index, you may pass him straight on the street. He may only be wearing a size medium shirt. But then a much bulkier guy who may have 40, 50 pounds of fat to lose may not look that out of shape and fills out an extra large shirt. So in clothes, the bigger kind of fatter guy kind of always wins. But then at the pool, it's the guy in the medium shirt who has a much better index. You're like, oh my God, that's the guy who's in shape. Right. And the guy who was filling out the extra large shirt, you're like, oh, well, you put your shirt back on, sort of thing. So it's just, what do you want to be? Do you want to be shirt on big, or do you want to be shirt off big?
Right. And that's a great point, because, there was a point probably 4 years ago where I was 40 pounds heavier. I just was not good. I'm going through a tough time in my life. And shirt on, most people had no idea I had put on that kind of weight. I still look pretty decent with the shirt on, but I was embarrassed to take my shirt off. There's just no way. When I went to the beach, I feared the beach. I just didn't want to take my shirt off. I looked great with it on, but yeah, with it off, I looked horrible. And it was very interesting in listening to the most recent podcast at the Adonis Index blog with Mark Levy, who was running into people who said, wow, you look skinny with the shirt on, yet when he took the shirt off and they showed all the pictures, and they said, dude, looks absolutely phenomenal. And even with your transformation, I seriously, when talking about weight, when I saw your recent transformation pictures, and you said you're 185, I would have guessed you much higher than that. And I recently did a little contest on my blog and posted some of my before and after photos and asked my audience to guess how much I weighed. And everyone, even though I'm only 5'7", people were putting me up around 200 pounds. They just thought I was so much bigger. I have the illusion that I'm bigger than I am. But so weight really doesn't matter. It's a look. It's and a lot of things. And I want to be strong too.
Yeah, and you're right. It's the word is illusion. Like people just people can't really guess or don't have much of a grip on how big 170 pounds looks when it's lean, or how big 200 pounds look when it's lean on a given height. Like when you think a guy is actually six-pack ripped at 200 pounds, if he's not 6'4", no, that's just too heavy. Or if he's not a pro bodybuilder, like 200 pounds is huge. Like people don't get that. They just misinterpret what lean muscle actually looks like without any sort of fat covering it up. And it's the illusion of looking, like you said, looking bigger the leaner you get.
Right.
And guys misinterpret that.
I like the shift of different measurements as well, because if you were to focus even just on body fat percentage, you could have two guys side by side at 4% body fat, and one person would look really skinny and almost frail at times, but someone else at 4% body fat, if they have the wider shoulders and the narrow waist, everything, it's just 4% body fat is going to look different if you don't have the carrying a certain muscle mass, lean mass.
Yeah, it's not just about skinny at all costs. Obviously, we're talking about building as much mass as you can build.
Exactly. All right, man. Moving on. Like one of the things I really, I really like about your show, your podcast, is that you guys, it is no BS. You don't try to sugarcoat things. You're very upfront and honest. Do you have a sense that the fitness industry, kind of as a whole in general, is overwhelming and confusing people and making fat loss way more complicated than it needs to be?
Yes, and I'm going to try to be as correct as possible with how I proceed with this answer. Not a lot, how do we say this? you can be exposed as a reader, as someone who consumes fitness information either via magazines or online or any combination, the newspaper, magazine. You can be exposed to quite a bit of what seems like scientific information that's being written by people who are good writers but aren't scientists, or they themselves don't actually really understand what they're saying to you, or aren't applying it properly. So in some cases, people are deliberately misleading other people because it's a catchy marketing hook. And in other cases, which I think is even worse, people don't know that they're misleading other people. They actually don't know what they don't know. So they're telling you something that's wrong, but they don't even know it's wrong. They actually think they're helping you. And it's a worst case scenario when you have the blind leading the blind. You have somebody who doesn't know what they don't know. That's kind of dangerous, right? Because how genuine is that person going to be? They're going to come across really honest because they like totally believe it. And I mean, these people aren't, it's not dangerous to the point where they're sending you to an early grave or something like that. But they're going to cause you a lot of stress, a lot of heartache. You're probably going to waste some money trying things. You're going to be really disappointed if results don't come the way you want. And this is I don't know what the word is, but if you get results doing something way overly complicated or way overly cumbersome that it didn't have to be, you may train yourself to believe it really is that difficult. So you could be like, well, I did that for a month. My God, it was the hardest thing I ever did. Oh my God, if that's what weight loss is, I don't know if I could ever do this. So, you know what I mean? Like, you can be convinced into it being way harder than it is. And again, it's really hard to sell people the concept of like eat less and exercise more. Like, who wants that answer? That's a terrible answer. It's not sexy. You can't sell it. There's not much you can do with that answer. And some people refuse to accept that answer. Some people embrace it, and those people who embrace it, there's nothing left for you to sell to them. They're just kind of rolling along with that. And now within that, once you grasp that simple concept, calories in and out and all that. Yeah. Then little tweaks here and there might help you through your day and stuff like that. And, whether you choose to eat breakfast, that's like, all of those things sort of come in once you've got that part handled. But if you don't have that part handled, all of these techniques, it's kind of like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic while it's sinking. The most important thing is to plug the hole in the boat, not figure out where the chairs belong, right? So I feel like that's kind of the analogy. Like everyone's focusing way over here on all the minutia when the major problem hasn't been dealt with over here first.
Right. Yeah, they're kind of looking for that magic bullet. Everyone's looking for the advanced stuff, but they haven't mastered the fundamentals first and really mastered the basics. Like I said, it's not sexy for that.
No. Well, the sexy stuff is the stuff that might work at the very end of a cut down. Like let's say you're getting ready for some kind of photo shoot or I don't know, maybe a competition, or I don't know, you just want to get in shape to put some pictures up. In the last week or two, after you're really controlling your calories and you're chipping away at the fat, whether or not you drink water in the morning or not, that might actually change how sharp your abs come in for a photo shoot. Whether or not you have some carbs that day might actually change how full your muscles look. But you got to be in the single-digit body fats ready for a photo shoot before that stuff even matters. Like when you've got 20, 30, 40, whatever pounds to lose, do you really think water content or carbs matter? No. You just eat less. Like you've got to, you're not refining the sculpture until the very end, and that might be when those picky recommendations actually matter. And what I think the problem is, people get caught up on those ones when they're still like months away from that stuff ever mattering. And again, that's literally 24 to 48 hours before a photo shoot, if you're ever even doing a photo shoot. So, like with our contest, we get some of the guys, we train them on that a little bit at the end. We're like, experiment with the carb thing, don't go crazy. Maybe drink some water and then cut it and see what happens. But in general, you don't need to go to those lengths just to lose fat.
Very cool. That's an important point. That thinking about things way too in advance. It's okay to think about some of these things, but you don't need to apply them so soon in your journey. Master the fundamentals first. Now, if it's calories in, calories out, and we're looking at this simplified process here, what kind of role does junk food or unhealthy foods play in this? Because I know a lot of people associate losing weight, burning fat with deprivation and just feeling like it's very, very restrictive. How can junk food fit into all of this?
Yeah, I don't understand the eat clean thing because no one can actually define me what clean is. So until someone can do that, I don't even know what that means. I think I know what it means from like the bodybuilding culture, but the specifics of it become completely nonsensical when you actually try to determine what that means. So let's just go with what clean and junk is. During my cut down, I ate a donut and a coffee every morning, and I just accounted for the fact that that's a certain number of calories. Now, I think people get caught up with the density of the food. So I could have had a bigger meal if I went with something less calorically dense. So if I didn't have the coffee with some sugar in it and some milk, and I didn't have the donut, but I went like egg whites and some oatmeal with no sugar. Like the bowl I could eat would be bigger, right? So I could make 300 calories look and feel bigger,
right? Or
it can be smaller and I can consume it in less bites, the way I did it in the mornings. And that's it. That's really the difference. Now the trick is, can you control yourself with those foods? Like a donut and a coffee aren't my hot button foods. They're my creature comforts. Like in the morning, that just really makes me happy. And so I'm perfectly happy to allocate 300-400 calories during a cut down. I just know I'm going to do that in the morning, and that's going to set the tone for my day. I'm going to feel good. I'll get work done, all that stuff. If I decided to change that ritual, I think I'd be miserable every day. So I choose to make that many calories for that moment of the day, and then I know for the rest of the day I can probably fit another 1,000 calories. And maybe I'll do a little bit more volumetric type eating later in the day where the food becomes a bit bulkier to try to satisfy that sort of need to want to eat, instead of like, if I tried to do 2 more coffees and 2 more donuts, I'd almost be done, right? So I can't do that all day. But I know that the moments when I do have it, it satisfies my need to have things like that, and I can get on with the business of eating in a deficit and getting rid of the fat and whatnot. So it's the difference between deprivation and restriction. You need to be in a calorically restricted state to burn fat, but you don't need to feel deprived, so to speak, right? So that's the distinction. If there's a certain food item you kind of makes you happy, you have to try to fit it in there, because there's only so many days in a row that I believe you can go until you're just like, you kind of snap. Right. And but if you can sort of dose it, I guess, on a frequent basis, daily or every couple of days, I think that'll get you through the other moments of those days and the other days where you tighten it up a bit on calories. So I think it's kind of like a flux. I found that, and I was working with a girl cutting for Venus. We both could last 2 or 3 days pretty restricted, and then we were like, okay, we need to loosen this up a bit, and not like loosen it like a giant cheat day or anything. We just sort of pulled the reins back a little bit on how restricted we were with our food choices, and we probably ate all the way up to sort of BMR maintenance for the day, and allowed our workouts to be the only caloric deficit for the day. Whereas on the tighter days, we were eating relatively, significantly below BMR as well as workouts. So we had days where we calculated we might have been in a 1,000-calorie deficit, combining a food deficit plus workout, and then other days where we ate all the way up to BMR and tried to work off 500. You know what I mean? Something like that. And on those days, that's where we treated ourselves a little bit more, and that just kept the process like fun and not kind of insane. Otherwise, if you just have this giant list of things you're just not going to eat, that's really hard to do. Some people can do it, but I would say it's, for the most part, it doesn't have to be that restrictive.
Right. I think
so. There's a place for everything.
Right. One of the key words that you mentioned earlier was satisfaction, and I think there's various levels of satisfaction, different ways you can satisfy yourself. You can have that bigger size meal that may fill your tummy, satisfy that hole in your stomach in a certain way, and then there's those smaller amount meals that are more calorie dense, but it satisfies you in a different way. Like I said, comfort, just satisfaction. It's just habitual and just it's part of your daily routine. So there's various levels of satisfaction, different ways you can kind of satisfy yourself.
Yeah, totally. There's a difference between the feeling of a big bowl of veggies and broccoli and cauliflower. Like we would do a puree of broccoli and cauliflower and make it the base of a soup. And yeah, you could have bowls and bowls of that for a couple hundred calories. But there's a different, and that fills your stomach, and you get that man, I'm full. Physically, I'm actually full. There's pounds of food in me.
Right.
But that's a lot different than biting into a piece of dark chocolate. That's a totally different satisfaction.
Exactly.
a couple bites of that chocolate really make a difference if you're a chocolate eater and you're like, just a couple bites. Like, we would actually buy a chocolate bar and just split it. And I was just like, yeah, it's 100 calories each. Yeah. I just want the taste of chocolate. It's not obsessive. I would really like to end the day with that taste. And so, and you just cannot replace certain things. Like, there's no substitute for that sort of thing. So, and so there's room for both, like you said, and you have to feel satisfied. You can't feel deprived the whole way.
Right. Awesome. I want to shift the focus to exercise, and to me, the way I see it in mainstream fitness, working out, a lot of the workouts are more like cardio based. It's almost that they're incorporating some resistance training, but the whole idea is to get their heart rate accelerated and work up a huge sweat and burn calories. And that works for some people. It suits their lifestyle. But in my opinion, the way I see these workouts, it's more, oftentimes I don't see it as producing the desired look. Like, I find it'll lean people out, but it's not really producing, like, if you're aiming for a golden ratio, you want to widen your shoulders and shrink your waist. I find those types of workouts, I don't know, they just don't produce a desired look. Do you feel that there's these workouts out there a little bit too cardio based or too focused on calorie burning? What's your take, and what's your approach when you work out? Like, when you go into the gym and want to lift weights, what's the whole purpose? What's the whole goal of going in there?
Okay, so I always view your time in the gym as like most of it is just for building muscle mass and building it where you want it. So obviously we're biased towards a look. We think, like, I kind of just was calling everyone's bluff. I'm like, I don't know why you're going to the gym. You want to look better. Like, no one goes to the gym for health. I think health is a side effect of a good-looking body, because I don't think you can have a good-looking body that's not also a healthy body. I think they're one and the same. So I think if you're just shooting for the look, the health comes with it. Because when was the last time someone went to the gym, looked significantly worse, but was healthier? It just doesn't make any sense. And would anyone even go to the gym if it produced better health, but a worse look? Like, when you actually think of it that way? Like,
That's a good point.
Let's say you and I went to the gym, dedicated, we did everything, we ate healthy and this and that and the other, and we gained 20 pounds of just kind of fat-looking mass.
Right.
But we went to the doctor and everything was healthy. We'd be like, no, I do not want the health. I don't want health without the look. So, they're one and the same. There's no reason to feel, I don't know, narcissistic about training for a look. That's what everyone's doing. It makes sense that a healthy body is a good-looking body when you take into the whole competing for better genes and all of that stuff and all that, right? It just makes sense. So I think you should use your workouts as targeted muscle building to improve your shape, improve your look. And without getting really specific about it, mostly guys want a tight waist, broad shoulders, big chest, big arms, big back, that kind of thing. The V taper is what we're after. And for girls, it's kind of the hourglass, but more of a tight waist with muscular hips and legs and the shoulders. Not huge, but just accentuating the taper based on the actual underlying muscle, and not allowing the way your body randomly distributes body fat to determine how your body's going to end up looking. So those various looks on, you hear about the pear shape, the apple shape, the banana shape for women. That's a body fat distribution pattern that's being referred to. That's not the actual muscle pattern. When you start removing that fat and start building the muscles targetedly in specific areas, most women are going to end up with that kind of athletic sort of hourglass, right? So that's the shape the actual muscle is. Those other shapes, the pear, apple, banana thing, that's the shape you're sort of genetically predetermined to lay down body fat. Kind of like how a lot of guys store it in their gut. We don't have that choice. That just happens. So if you get big, that's sort of where it goes. So the only thing you can do is try to get rid of that and then accentuate the size and width of your shoulders. So to me, using your workouts to burn calories doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because let's just say you've got your calories under control, you're eating the eating side of it, and you do some kind of crazy cardio workouts that burn tons of calories. So you're rowing, you're running, you're doing everything. Well, now you've left the look of your body up to whatever you look like under there. You get rid of all the fat. So what's your muscle shape look like? if you just have genetically sort of narrow shoulders, or you're a bit dominant in the chest but weak in the shoulders, and you don't have much of a back, well, that's just what you're going to look like when you're lean. Like, you have the power and the ability to like shape that stuff if you want. Like, you can build up certain muscle groups to capture whatever shape you're kind of after. So it makes more sense to me to use your diet to get rid of the fat and use all of the time or at least most of your energy in the gym to build the muscles into the shape that you want. So you don't, if you think you genetically have narrow shoulders, you're not trapped with those genetics, so to speak. You can work on them. But if you naturally have kind of bigger shoulders, but your chest is a little weak, well, you can spend more time bringing that up, right? So it's kind of like go with what embrace the thing you have and work on the thing that needs more work. But all of that's muscle building related. None of it is, cardio burning fat. That's not really it's not gonna get you there. You gotta build that muscle.
Good points. I like the way you summed that up there. And I've never been afraid to admit that vanity is my big driving force. The reason why I work out, the reason why I eat well. I want to look great, and we hear about all these like finding your powerful reason why, and I could really tap into that. Like, well, why do I want to look great? And I could say, well, I want to have incredible confidence. I want to have lots of energy to play with my kids. I want to be the best husband, the best spouse. I want to be healthy and live long so I can walk my daughter down the aisle. I can think of all these emotional, powerful reasons, but what it all boils down to is me looking great. So I got to focus my effort on looking great, and all those things will come. It's the looking great that drives me more than a lot of those other emotional reasons.
Yeah, I would say this is the one area where vanity serves us well.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if you're chasing a healthy, good-looking body, likely everything will fall into place. Like all those things you just said, they're gonna come as side effects of that.
Right.
So it makes sense to just focus on the one thing and the rest follows.
Exactly. All right, man. I want to wrap up this interview by asking you one of the big mistakes that you see a lot of people making out there when it comes to transforming their body, why it's a mistake, and how they can correct it.
I think one of the biggest mistakes is assuming calorie counting, or assuming the amount of calories they can eat is higher than it really is. And it ends up bleeding into this belief that like weight loss just isn't possible or isn't for them. And a lot of people don't realize how many inherent errors there are in trying to determine how many calories are in various foods. And people kind of give up real quick. And they have this fear that eating too low somehow will shrink their muscle mass away and it will somehow never come back. And there's a lot of fear based with, at least on the guy's side, with getting a little bit lighter and eating a little bit less. And on the girl's side, there's always this fear of eating too little. And so in both cases, I still haven't put my finger on why people feel it this way, but there's this fear about eating less, and I just haven't figured out exactly why. I think it's because humans naturally recognize people losing weight as being sick, or in a disease state. So our natural reaction, and this happened to a lot of our contest guys as they were losing weight. I mean, these guys got ripped, they're muscular, they look good, but in a t-shirt, they just look like they're losing weight. Like, they don't look like anything's happening. So a lot of people in their lives are like, oh my God, you look sick, are you okay? But oddly, when they were 250 pounds and in danger of getting diabetes the other direction, no one said, hey, you look sick, you should lose weight.
Right.
So socially, the taboo is only one direction. If you lose too much weight compared to what other people are viewing, they feel it completely within their right to come up to you and say, hey, I think I'm concerned you look like you're losing too much weight. But if you're gaining weight to the point of like, you might have a heart attack, it's socially taboo to walk up to the guy and say, you gotta lose some weight. Like, it's ridiculous, right? You think about that. But that's just as dangerous, right? And then what we're talking about isn't dangerous at all. These people are getting in like really good shape. I just think everyone's mindset's calibrated too big. And when you actually see a guy who's in really good shape just in regular clothes, you can't tell, because we're just so used to seeing bigger people now. Like you said on one of our guys, Mark, he's pretty light for his height, and then he takes his shirt off and like, oh my God, that guy's ripped. And he's got more than enough muscle. He's lots of muscle. He's strong as hell. But in a t-shirt, people around him were like, are you sick? Are you okay? And how do people perception get so skewed that a guy, a ripped guy right in front of them and really in the best shape of his life, is people are concerned that he's sick.
Yep.
That's sick. That's something wrong with that. So there's something about people fearing losing weight. I don't know what it. I mean, we've got a bunch of theories, and I'm sure you've listened to some of them. It's other people being concerned. They're not even concerned about the guy losing the weight. They're more worried about how it reflects on them.
Yes.
Because let's say you and I are in the same social circle, and let's say I have 50 pounds to lose, and I kind of know it, but I'm not doing anything about it. And then 3 months later, you're losing all this weight, and you're getting a bunch of attention, and you're really feeling good about yourself. That just makes me feel worse about myself. So I may sort of throw a few slings and arrows at you just to protect my own feelings, because you're kind of progressing past me now, right. And I know better. I know I should be doing it, and I'm kind of not. And so that kind of happens to a lot of people too. So I guess I sort of went all over the place, but wrapping it back up, it just seems that all of this social pushback, all of this taboo about talking about people's weight on the way up, but it's okay to give your opinion on the way down, has built this fear into people about eating less and about losing weight. So even though the weight loss industry is this giant multi-billion-dollar industry and everybody wants to lose weight, the minute you start losing weight, people start attacking you.
Yep.
And so there's this weird thing going on. So the best thing you can do is kind of internalize it to some degree. Share it with people who, if you're going to try to lose weight, share it with people who are on board with it, and be careful who else you kind of broadcast it to, because a lot of people may try to hold you back that are for no other reason than they're just protecting their own feelings. And they it's not like they're physiologists or trainers or physicians. They literally just, their worldview of you is when you were bigger and not as you're smaller, and it's sort of bugging them that you're changing and they're not. And that leads to a lot of people getting sabotaged and not taking it to where they really want to go. And
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Especially when it's family, it's loved ones, people you care about saying, wow, you're looking sick, you're looking frail, even though you're looking better, like so much better. It could definitely have a big impact on it, cause you put that limiting belief, some doubts in your mind that am I really doing the right thing for myself? And everyone's got different goals. Everyone.
You gotta be careful when someone else is trying to influence. You can never be sure if their support or lack of support is really for you or is it for them. Like I'll leave it on this note. We've had a guy who got in really good shape, came in second in our contest, but he got some pushback from his fiance, and the guy looked fantastic. You think she's like, oh my God, I'm marrying this guy because I love the fact that he's in great shape. Instead, she was getting a little antsy about it because I think his body weight was like approaching hers.
Right.
And that was it sort of came out eventually. So she supported him through 11 weeks of the transformation. In the 11th week, there's one more week to go. She started like, this is getting ridiculous. You're pushing this too far. And then the guy comes in second, wins a bunch of money, looks fantastic. And then the truth comes out that, oh, she's a bit self-conscious being, engaged to a guy who made that much of a transformation. So it's really weird the way even the closest people to you can eventually be the person trying to hold you back. So I don't really. You got to do it for yourself, and you got to be be strong with your conviction of it, and you'll be able to get where you want to go.
Exactly. Great points, man. Great points. And I know as we start wrapping this up, you mentioned calories. Is it? I want to direct people below this video links to. Was it the Venus Index? Where you on that blog where you guys were talking about the errors with calories in and errors at calories out?
Yeah, we've got 2 podcasts on the Venus side, but guys can listen to it too. It's the same information. And if you want to know how messed up calorie counting actually can get, we've got 2 podcasts on the venusindex.com where on the one podcast we talk about all the ways you can make a mistake counting your calories burned. So just the first mistake is estimating your metabolic rate. And then other ones like how many calories you really burn in an exercise, net calories burned. No one talks about that. And those sort of things. And then the follow-up, and there's a transcript for them too. If you don't want to listen, you can read. The follow-up podcast and transcript is all the errors we make trying to count the calories in, and there's a bunch of them. And so when you add the 2 errors together, and they compound on each other, if you're shooting for a 200 or 300 calorie deficit, but you're making a 300 or 400 calorie error every day, you're not going to lose any weight. And most people are trying to slice and dice the calories right down to the 5 calories one way or the other. So I kind of I say to people, if the amount of calories you think you're eating or burning doesn't end in 2 zeros, as in like 1,500 or 1,400, but if you actually think you can measure it to like, 1,523, you can't. You just can't. And these two podcasts and the transcripts explain why it's highly unrealistic to think you're measuring to that degree. It's kind of like saying I'm 6 foot tall and 0.4 centimeters. Like, no, you're not. Like, how do you know that, right? So you can only be so precise. And the calories in and out, it's very difficult because there's an unknown on both sides of the equation. You can never really know how many you're burning, and you can never actually really know how many you're eating within a certain range. So the smartest thing you can do, if you're trying to lose weight, again, is to build in an error factor that accounts for that range. And that's what we explain in those 2 podcasts.
Yeah, very informative stuff. I listened to the calories burned audio, so I'm getting ready to listen to the calories in audio. I'm really looking forward to that. And man, John, I got to tell you, it was really tough for me to nail down a couple questions for this interview, so I really want to have you on again because there's so many things I want to cover and discuss. But I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and kind of introduce yourself to my Fat Loss Quickie audience and share your insights. It's been great having you, bud.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Have a great day. Take care.